Thank you for joining. Thank you for your support. Really, we appreciate it. Hopefully, once we record it, we'll put it on YouTube so that you can get the chance to have exposure that is needed for such a great thinking.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here and my pleasure to introduce myself and be part of this network. My name is Asseel Honein, and I'm a design thinker by nature, and I discovered that I do design thinking without knowing what it is. So I'm an architect and I'm a real estate developer, and I realized that I have a nature of loving to solve problems and being inspired by problems instead of being discouraged. And the situation in Lebanon is full of problems because of the social complex situation and the geopolitical situation and the infrastructure and lack of electricity and the waste problem. So all of these are for me a great place to hack it and to create sustainable and innovative solutions. So in my real estate development, I created a lot of solutions and I created open innovation process. And in my social innovation startup, Parallel Studio, I created initiatives and projects that solve problems in the society through architecture and design thinking. And also I realized that I can offer services in design thinking to help other individuals and startups and organizations and businesses to create innovative solutions. So this is why now I'm offering design thinking services. So why do we need it now post-COVID? Because what have been we talking about in the last 10 and 15 years saying innovate or die, now it has become an ultimate truth. Before it, we needed to convince people innovate or die, but they didn't feel the emergency of it. But then COVID put people in a place where they needed to really fix things that didn't seem broken. But now they needed to feel like, they needed to see that if they didn't change their, or they met the new needs or the new behavioral changes that are that came with this virus, they needed to change also and to meet the needs of the people. Sorry, I'm stumbling. So 90% of the startups, we know that they fail, but what we don't look into is that when market use design thinking, they are meeting the 1.5 more of the market share of other companies who do not use design thinking, because design thinking allow you, it's a process, and they allow you to meet more the requirement of the people. So I usually make it interactive and ask people, how do you approach problems? And right now we will make it less interactive because we're not too many people, and we can ask you your opinion if you like that. So let me ask you this, Rayan, how do you approach a problem when you have a problem?
Wow, it's a big thing to ask. I'm a supply chain guy, so by nature I like to compartmentalize every single part of the problem. I like to go through a logical thinking. And let's say, for example, I have a container that is late to receive, for example. So what are my options? What's going to be impacting on my customers in terms of deliverables and readiness? What's going to be their impact on their stock, their coverage? And then I take every single part based on their consumptions, and then go through the process to understand the best approach. I'm talking, this is how I like to think. I take it cluster by cluster, item by item, so that I can reach a solution. Sometimes I have a helicopter point of view. Let's say I have an idea that I would like to solve it. So I might have a helicopter view that is, okay, this is the problem, what is the overall impact of it, and then how can I resolve it, and then I go back to the clusters. that's the way my brain functions. I'm not sure if it's the best way.
No, this is excellent, because this is the first part of understanding really the root cause of the problem and being analytical. And when you are being very diagnostic about it, you will be able to contribute to the solution and understand really the root cause of the problem. So no, this is a very good way of being analytical and critical. So yeah, excellent. So in my case, for example, I give these pictures as an inspiration. I saw that there's a problem in the teaching in the architecture school, that as an architect in the architecture school, the students are being taught by their teachers, and it's just them designing for their teachers, instead of in the real life that the designer design for a client, and the client is very opinionated, and they're going to be living in this place, and they're going to be collaborating with manufacturers and other types of engineers like electrical and mechanical, and the designer is used to only only used to designing with their teachers. So I decided to design a project that they will be simulating in a real life and executing in a real life and imitating the process in real life. So this is how I approach the problem of theoretical versus practical experience, and we built real projects with real innovations, and this way we can do real actions and find solutions. So the design thinking also, it's not for designers only. It's a process where it is called design, and it is intended to fix a problem, but it's not meant only for designers. It could be for human resources. It can be for people who it's okay. It is meant for people who have any problem and who need to fix it. So things that are really important for me here to discuss is the mindset. The mindset is, we need to understand that a design thinker is someone who is ready to collaborate with everyone and understand the root causes, and is someone who is ready to serve people and very empathetic, and is ready to talk, to show the to show and execute, not only talk about the problem. This is very important in my culture here in Lebanon, because let's face it, I mean, in Lebanon that we have a lot of people who مننظر كتير. كل العالم هون مدراء وبينظروا, and let's face it, as long as we talk about it and we acknowledge it, as long as we fix it and we don't do it again, and we don't encourage it. Sometimes these people are the people who get the contracts and get the jobs لأنه بيضحكوا على العالم و they get it, they know their way around بالحكي. So the first step here, we need to understand that we need to be mindful of the process. كل حدا بده to fix a real problem and to be innovative, they need to understand that it's a long process. If I want to solve a real complex social problem, it's going to take me years. It's not going to be a one-time thing. It's not a hack. ما فيني أعملها هيك. منا إبرة, منا عملية. Even the doctor probably knows that if he's going to do a big operation on someone, it's gonna need a rehabilitation afterwards. So design thinking, it's a process of 5 stages. I have my own methodology that I use as a consultant, and it's usually much more embedded with the mindset and too many aspects of the processes that I learned throughout the 10 years of my experience me using it. But I stick to introducing the basics. It's empathy. It's really well defining the problem, as Rayan was discussing. Let's compartmentalize and let's look into what's happening here. Let's understand the nature of the problem. Let's look into what happened and define it well. Ideating, let me brainstorm. How could I fix this problem? And in ideation, there are millions of ways to create a solution. But also what I love to fixate on here is prototype. For me, prototype is super important, because for some reason we decided that it's okay to to philosophize things, to talk about things, but never show anything. But for me, even if I'm going to talk about an app, if I sketch it, let us start prototyping. If I sketch it, if I build it, if I can just prototype things, it become more real. And definitely let's test things and let's keep iterating until they work. So this is why you see all of these flashes like this and like that, because it's an organic process where at any time it can go from a prototype to, again, let's go talk to the people, and then it's a process, and then let's test it, and then let's redefine the problem. Many times we think we understand the problem, and then we realize, this is not the problem. Earthquakes do not kill the people, buildings kill the people. So if we fortify the buildings just like Japan is doing, poverty kills people, not malaria kills people, you know? So often it's not really the problem that we think it is. So another tip is that ideation may or may not be the starting point. So many people think that the idea is the first side of the beginning of the innovation. Not really. Sometimes like we're getting inspired by nature, sometimes you see something and you say, oh, where can I use it? For example, you know the Velcro? So there's this scientist who was walking his dog in nature, and you know this little plants over here, they got stuck on his dog, and then he's walking in nature, and then he started all day removing these things on his dog, and then he goes like, oh my God, he put it under the microscope and he sees the 2 hooks on it, and then he started removing it, and then the idea of schlag came to life, and he thought, where can I use it? And then he could use it on textile. And so sometimes, and then you have a problem and you fixate on how can I use it, and or what in nature can help me fix this problem. And it doesn't need to be already there. You can search for the solution. For example, this bullet train. Do you know the story of the bullet train? Maybe Rayan or Hanan. It's a very inspiring story from nature. So this is the fastest train designed in Japan. It was the source of pride because it's the fastest. And but it had one problem, where in Tokyo they had 0 tolerance for any sound and for any noise بالأحرى, and it created sonic boom when it entered to a tunnel, and it had a different shape. So the engineers were very frustrated, and when the engineer, he happened to be a birder. He wasn't looking into a solution inspired by nature. He happened to be a birder. He was just looking into birds, and he happened to see this kingfisher bird going dramatically perpendicularly into the water, without any sound, without any splash, into the water, picking up his prey, the fish, eating it without any movement, without any splash. So he kept looking into this. And by the way, this science imitating nature is called biomimicry, biomimetism. And he kept imitating the form of it, and this is called biomimicry, biomimetism, imitating the form of nature in the first level. And they were able to change the form of this train, and it accomplished 3 things. And this is what design thinking was able to create. It was able to fix the problem. It was able to make it faster. It was already the fastest train, and it was able to make it consume by 15% less energy. And this way, the idea of whether you have an idea and you're thinking, where can I use it? Or you already have a problem and you are using design thinking to solve the problem. In my experience, design thinking is very important to help us succeed in these times where we have a lot of challenges, whether it's the dollar problem in Lebanon, the economic problem in Lebanon, or the COVID-19 globally. So now we can talk quickly about how to use it and what kind of questions we need to ask to help you guys use it better in your maybe professional life, and maybe if you're interested in creating initiatives and make it relevant. So the first question we need to think, it's for design's sake. It's not art, it's not creativity. It's a design solution to a problem. But the design aspect is maybe a technical, maybe it's, you know. So who are you designing for? What is the design problem? And what resources do you have? Because it's the same design problem and it could be for different target audience and with different person designing it, and the whole manifestation would change from one person to another, and the unique value will change from one person to another, and the whole story will change. So this is very important to the authenticity, to be for people to make it very genuine, to be yourself, to have your unique story, to offer something new to and contribute to the society. And also these are some questions that you can for homework, like what does potential customers say if you don't already have customers, and how do they behave? So if you already have customers, just see what are they saying and how they are behaving. But if you don't have them, if it's a startup or it's an initiative that still didn't happen, just check who is your target market. And so there's a tip here, is that what I already mentioned. And here is often when you do this exercise, you realize that you will realize things that people often, you will become like a psychologist with your clients. You will realize maybe when you are maybe designing their own homes that with trying to see how they behave, they didn't know they need an office in their homes, for example. You didn't know they needed an area of something. So for example, into a resort, and I changed the business model 3 times now, because post-COVID and because of the economic situation in Lebanon, I realized that these people need a new space where they can think of it as home, but they have a pool and a garden, but they act in it as if they get their own alcohol and food, but they have a space for themselves. So I rethought, and I made it some kind of a Lebanese version of Airbnb, where I still am the host, but we act in a different way because to meet their own demands. So this came after a few phone calls with few people to interact in a different way, and it will still be, you know, lucrative, and it will still be convenient for both sides. Of course, it also is still good for me as for my resources as well. For other people's resources, it might not meet with them, but for me it works. And this is the most important part. It's a win-win-win. So if you don't have an initiative yet, or you're looking into one, it's very important that you also look for what UN SDG goals. It's very important that if you're starting an initiative or a business, that it's important to kickstart it with a global vision as well, so you can, you know, make use of these global trends. So maybe you can reuse some ideas, but please never copy anyone, because you can understand something and adapt, but copying will never work, because other than the fact that intellectual property, other than the fact of the plagiarism and the ethical, I see a lot of copied ideas that have no sustainable future, no sustainability. And I see a lot of people who simply just saw an idea, they wanted to imitate it. This doesn't work. Just try to understand the real problem, try to have goals and objectives and understand them and contribute to society. And we have a lot of problems to fix. Why copy? Anyways. So yeah, another tip is to prototype, make a story, find meaning. I don't want to. So this is a project from Eco Window. I mean, it could look very important to find meaning behind it. So if I told you that it's just a window, you can grow your food from it, you will find it like very silly, or I don't know. But the truth is, this has a lot of meaning behind of it, because this is meant for an area in Kerem al-Zaytoun where at first the government wanted to build a wall to cover this area. So they wanted the road from the airport for the tourists to look nice. So when they saw that, they decided, but then my students decided to, why paint it? Just paint it. There is no performance in painting, it's just aesthetic. Why don't we cover it with performance in terms of, like, if we create a green wall, it can help these people living in this area create some shade from the sun. It can create some, you know, like from the noise, with the carbon emission from the can help when you have some solar also, because here in this part of the, because there is electric cuts and they don't even have generator in that area, it can help with the few hours of the electric cut. So in this, and then what happened is that when they were prototyping and they were installing it together with the people, there were children who were inspired to become mechanical engineers and to become oh, this is what it means to be a mechanical engineer. I want to be a mechanical engineer when I grow up. And when they started hooking the water filtering system on the roof, also to connect it to water these plants, so it created a whole ecosystem and interaction on a certain level where it was really meaningful, and real prototypes and real projects that allow us to connect academia with community projects that were meaningful. And no one was talking about these kind of approaches versus many levels. So so the idea is that there is no small projects enough, no small prototype enough. There are ideas that we need to learn from and to act upon. And there is always storytelling and positive vibes. So here's a tip. Well, always think what you're good at, passionate for, don't judge. Always, you know, in design thinking, I have to admit that my 30s my 20s, because in 20s I did a lot of projects that I didn't know what's in it for me, and now I can thank myself for it, because they turn out into a huge amount of data and learning experience. Later on, you can harvest the ownership. It's not like technology, you can tell what's going to be the outcome of it right away. like the app, you've got 1 million users. No, you don't have that. In social entrepreneurship, you need to wait, or even smart systems, you need to wait for like 10 years to know what's the real outcome of it, how people will interact with it, and what's going to be the outcome of it. And yeah, I mean, if you have, let's keep some time for interactions and Q&A. That would be great. If not, I will have one final story to share.
Yeah, go ahead. بس أسيل ما بعرف شو الكونكشن عندك بس عم تكون when you're talking it's very very slow. It's like you're talking on a slow motion.
Yeah, we're losing you, Asseel.
Asseel?
Okay, maybe I can connect through my data, not through the internet. I'm using one second. Is this better?
Yeah, I'm saying when you were talking, kind of like slow motion.
Is this better? Okay,
yeah, much better.
I changed the connection. Okay,
oh,
sorry
perfect.
about that.
Stick
okay, I wish you guys told me earlier, Basita. Okay, so I'll tell you one last story about one of my ideas earlier. So I acknowledged this problem about architecture, and in 2010 I realized that women in architecture are minorities. يعني بنتخرج من الجامعة, we go into the order of engineers and architects, and 85% of the women registered in the order of engineers and architects do not practice architecture and engineers. And I started teaching at the university, and I realized that 65% of them are girls and ladies, and who already have the mindset that I'm going to be engaged, I'm going to graduate, I will get married. And I felt like, okay, we need to do something about it. So what happened is that I started doing hands-on architecture orientation for girls before they enter the university, and the target was to allow them to understand what is architecture, what is their role in the society as architects, and it was very interesting, and we had 100% success rates, because some girls, they wanted to still enroll to architecture and they understood what it means. Some girls didn't want it, and they didn't contribute to the 85% of ladies who do enter architecture. They do enter the OEA, but they didn't practice it. And some, they still enjoyed it, but they didn't want it, and they wanted to learn more about the city, and they said, let's do more of these workshops. We like to understand our rights to the city, and we started doing more of these workshops. And so what happened is that we started doing more workshops about this, our right to the city, urban planning, what is a home, the consumption. We even did with Dr. Sandy Rihana, smart city, smart house workshop. We did with electronics also. And then we started thinking, after winning a lot of awards and working with
Asseel, we can't hear you anymore. I think there is problem connection now.
What about now? Is it better?
Yeah, it's okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Just to let you know, Asseel, we use the same process or method thinking in our company whenever we're doing innovation in food. Let's say when we're working on a new ice cream flavor, or we're doing a new burger, we use the same, the emphasize, and then all these stages that help us really to be accurate in how we move in the business. Great presentation.
Thank you. Cool. Okay. So I will wrap it up and say that now we invented a new product. It's called Architecture in a Box. And it also got some grant and seed funding to be distributed and launched to be also, so every kid starting 8 years old to be introduced to be building a project on their own, and to be learning about architecture as a development, not necessarily to learn about architecture. We realized that it could become a development tool to learn about the, you know, our environment and about our built-up environment and consumption. So what I wanted to say is that from 2010, I acknowledged a problem, and 10 years later, we have a product. So my inquisitive or my very curious self as a design thinker, every time I did something about it, and now it is a product. And so the idea is that whether we're looking into it as a problem, as an opportunity to change, whether it's we are fixated on it as a company to create a change, I think together we can collaborate and make a difference. And I'm hoping that you all reach out if you have any question, or you are up to in your own organization or institution to create difference using design thinking. It works. I just want to prove that it works, and this is the right time to use it. And with the help of technology and design thinking, we can do anything. Thank you for having me, and I'm very happy to continue the conversation with any of you guys.
Thank you, Asseel. One
Thank you.
question,
Amazing.
Again, it's about
Amazing
costing.
presentation.
When Ryan said that he has many ideas when they're creating new flavors or ice cream, all right, when you have a new idea or you're implementing an idea you're doing, in architecture, it's very expensive. And as an architect, you create something and then your client might say, no, I don't like it, change it. So how you do this? It's always by idea. Tell me that's exactly that's what you want, and I want to execute it, or you know, maybe it's happened with you many times.
Yes. What I do is that I do design thinking for return on investment, always. I always study the idea and I study the sustainability of it, and the parameters are always very complicated. For me, I look into it in a sustainable way, and the parameters are always very complicated, and not always the economy. It's not always if it's expensive or not expensive, it wins or not. There are many measures to think of why to do it or not. Hala. If it's a private thing, it could be up to the client, but if it's a commercial thing, no, it's up to the matrix of it. Did I answer you?
Yeah, no, I was talking about, not about the quality or the cost. I'm saying when you do something, when you execute something, and when you're done, you're kind of saying, no, this is not what I want. This is not what I thought about. Redo it. So redo that's for the cost that we don't like.
لا, this can't happen right now anymore لأنه I know what I'm doing. So I'm this type of architect who's at 6 a.m. in my site. So it doesn't happen with me. This happens with the architects who are in their other country delegating their work to some other. I'm hands-on architect.
Okay, I will tell you what we do. Usually when it comes to any projects that we set, we identify something called guardrails. These guardrails are part of what is a no for us. It's a no-go from the initial idea. And then what is possible, because we need to look at the operation at the level of the restaurants. What is, of course, acceptable. For example, if the product will cost, the food cost will be more than 36% for us, then it's a no. We're not going to be selling something that is, So we set up guardrails, and these will help us whenever we ideate and we reach a consensus about a new trend that we would like to initiate, to have these guardrails that help us from a costing perspective.
Yes, we have that. We call them the core value, the core concepts we cannot move, and we have the core values, and we have the margins. So we have that. Yes, exactly.
I'm not sure if this answers your question, Mr. Fahd.
Yeah, he's on the phone.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. We're sorry about this change that has impacted on the attendee and Jad. It was really something that is a problem with our connection, which has really impacted on the number of people attending in the WebEx, the Zoom. We apologize for that, not to undermine any of the great work that you're presenting.
No, my pleasure. Don't worry.
Okay, Doc. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now, in a few, we're gonna start again with Dr. Nasser on another link. Thank you, Asseel. Again, مثل ما قال لك Ryan, no sorry. بس هيك على القليل قدرنا نشوف بعض، نحكي مع بعض better than the other side. À la prochaine. Oh, good luck in your project, Asseel. Very creative.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.